Logo, Chaffey College. Text, Wignall Museum of Contemporary Art. Home edition. Animation, a solid black square border surrounds the logo and text. A large triangle with a solid black border appears above the square. On its right side there's a small rectangle extending upward. It gives the appearance of the logo and text being inside a house with a chimney. Text, Panel Discussion, The Craft of a Zinester. March 1, 2023 from 6 to 7:30 p.m. Parentheses, PST.
Welcome, everybody. So good to see you here this evening. My name is Rebecca Trawick, pronouns she, hers.
Rebecca sits and faces us in front of a colorful backdrop of green, red and yellow triangles that have black borders that get thicker as the design moves from right to left. She has a headset on and wears a blue button-down shirt. Logo in the upper left-hand corner, Chaffey College. Below it is the shape of the United States. Text, Celebrating Black History Month. In the lower right corner is the house graphic from before. Text, Chaffey College. Home edition. Wignall Museum of Contemporary Art.
I'm the director and curator of the Wignall Museum of Contemporary Art, located on the Rancho Cucamonga campus of Chaffey College.
Text, access our full schedule of programs and recordings. www.chaffey.edu/Wignall. 9 additional individuals, each in Zoom boxes, face us.
Thanks for joining us this evening for the Craft of Zinesters, a panel discussion. The event is planned as part of a series leading up to the return of Zine Fest next week. We're super excited. That's 3/8, 12 to 2 at the Wignall Museum on the Chaffey College campus in Rancho Cucamonga. Zine Fest and Zine programming are developed in collaboration between folks within the arts, communication, and design academic and career community, the Wignall Museum, and the Chaffey College Library. Shout out to Adam Martinez, Sandra Galeas, Neil Watkins, and Vicky Telacro for their organizational and creative work related to zines at Chaffey College this year and in the past. Events are made possible in part due to the support of student equity and engagement. We invite you to join us next week at Zine Fest and meet and support local zinesters and to enjoy community around art making and activism. So first, our facilitators. Sandra B. Galeas, she, Aya, is a local Inland Empire artist with an interest and passion for zines. Her latest zine project, Amor y Rabia, highlighted and honored feminist knowledge learned from the matriarchs of her immigrant Colombian family. Her love for zines include their accessibility, creativity, and knowledge shared throughout communities. Professor Adam D. Martinez has been involved in zine culture for a decade. He co-founded the digital literary zine Por Vida, with the purpose of creating space for writers of all levels to practice the submission and publishing process. He's participated in local zine fests over the years, created special edition zines for his music releases, collaborated with Chaffey colleagues to create zines, and contributed zines to Chaffey College's zine collection. Okay, so our guest zinesters in alpha order, Matt Paramo. He, him is an artist based in Southern California. He runs an online store, distributing company, and a podcast for independent artists called Rat Nest. Sandria, she, her, is an author, editor, and director of Lion Light Creative Education, based in the Inland Empire. She started her publishing company, Everything is Paper, LLC, at the end of 2022, and hopes to provide independent artists with a space to see themselves in print. Ria Tepp, they, them, is a queer artist based in Los Angeles. They are one of the co-founders of LA Zine Fest and co-organized the event from 2012 to 2020. The personal zines Ria creates range from companion zines to their audio fiction works, collections of poetry to research-based zines for mutual aid projects. Ria performs musical sets that collage samples, storytelling, sci-fi ASMR, and offers gender-affirming voice lessons as a healing practice. One of their favorite zines to recommend to people is called Learning Good Consent, edited by Cindy Crabb. And lastly, but not least, Jen Venegas, they, them, is a queer, non-binary femme. They are a writer and spiritual healer. So huge thanks to everyone who is here today sharing their love of zines. We appreciate you all. So virtual shout out, and I'll pass it off to Sandra.
Sandra sits and faces us in front of a neutral background. Text, Sandra B. Galeas, parentheses she, / Ella. She wears eyeglasses and a white long-sleeve mock turtleneck shirt.
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. I would like to open up the space with a land acknowledgement. With respect and honor for the lands we gather on and the leaders before us, we would like to take a moment to acknowledge the Gabrieleño Tongva peoples, the original stewards of these sacred and unseceded homelands. The Tongva people's history, languages, cultural traditions, and legacy continue to shape this region, and we recognize their continuing presence in their homelands. In the spirit of truth and equity, Chaffey College commits to uplifting the voices of Indigenous peoples and building an inclusive and equitable educational environment and decolonizing the institution. We also encourage members of the Chaffey College community to learn about the land they reside on and the original caretakers and advocate for culturally responsive action.
All participants face us.
Professor Adam Martinez.
He faces us. He wears eyeglasses and has a beard. He sits in front of a solid light background and wears a white shirt under a dark pullover sweater.
Thank you, Sandra. So let's start this conversation, Zinesters. So what I would like to happen is this is just going to be very open. We have some questions that the team has kind of cultivated over the past couple months, and we'll go through those. And as Rebecca said, at the end, hopefully we'll have some time for our attendees if you have any questions for a Q&A segment. If we didn't cover something that you want to know about in these questions, by all means, feel free. And so this is going to be very, like I said, open. I'm going to ask the question, and our panelists, you can just go ahead and unmute yourself and speak your piece about it. And obviously, we'd like to hear from each and every one of you for every question. Are we ready?
The Zinesters respond in various ways. A few give enthusiastic thumbs-up signs. Others smile and nod.
All right. Okay, so the first question is very big, right? It's like, how did you get started in zine culture? Like, what was your first experience with zines, and what hooked you on zines? So it's kind of three questions in one.
A Zinester raises her hand. She faces us, sitting in front of a solid red wall. Text, Sandria, parentheses, she/they. She wears a light-colored hoodie and a dark patterned bandana.
My zine experience, I started out as a looky-loo. One of my friends invited me to the Zine Fest. I want to say either 2014 or 20, I want to say it was 2014 or 2015. And I was just amazed that I was meeting the authors at the same time of buying the book. So that blew my mind. I was writing already at the time, but I hadn't published. And it created the foundation of how I do my work now. Like, I'm like, oh, I could have been just writing things and getting them straight to the public, and there's venues for that. So that's how it started. And then
she makes an ascending gesture with her arm and smiles.
You know, it got crazy.
Another Zinester faces us. Text, Matt Paramo. Parentheses, he. He has short dark hair and wears a black t-shirt with flames on the front. He sits in a room in front of shelves filled with a wide array of books and other items.
I guess my first introduction to zines and zine making was a collective out of Berkeley called Slingshot that does activism zines, and kind of caught that like tail into high school, so like mid 2000s. I was just really intrigued and interested in how they presented information like why not to talk to the cops and know your rights and things that weren't being talked about. And then the fact that it was an accessible platform, it was a few bucks. I think it's $4 a month or $4 a year. Still, you get 4 issues in the mail. They do a yearly planner. It's a very cool little collective. They've been around since the 80s, I think. But that was introduction one. And then with making art and making music, you meet other people that self-publish and do projects that they can give out that is low cost, and you just become a collector. You start to appreciate everything and you know, everyone's unique voice and everyone's view on whatever they're doing, whether it's art, music, writing, reviewing, you know, and I've been hooked ever since.
Another Zinester faces us. Text, Jen Venegas, parentheses, they. They wear white cat-eye glasses and a dark short-sleeve shirt with thin white horizontal stripes. They have dark shoulder-length hair and sit in a room in front of a blue wall, surrounded by artwork, photographs, books and other small items.
I got started in zines when I was around 18, I think, which was a long time ago. But I used to go to like shows in LA, and when I would be standing in line, there was this zine collective that would sell their zines to people standing in line. And I forget what they were called. I think they were called De Facto Death Camp or something. A bunch of zinester dudes, like selling their writing and their art and stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. And I noticed at the same time, a lot of my friends were getting involved in zines, in online communities, live journal, things like that. And yeah, so I think there was this movement around that time, like late 90s, sort of like a resurgence of the early 90s feminist zines. And there's like a big long history of zines, but I was able to get involved in that. I've always been a writer, and so it was a really cool way to get some of my writing out, and also like read my friends' writing, read different experiences from different people, like in a really, like other people have said, like a really accessible way. So yeah, that's why, I'm into zines, because they're awesome.
Another zinester. Faces us. Text, Ria, parentheses, they. They have a headset on and sit in front of a neutral background. They wear a Sherpa jean jacket with a dark patterned shirt underneath and hold a black dog in their lap.
My first experience with zines was when I was in high school, and at the time I was living in Seattle, Washington, and there was a big protest. It was a WTO protest that was really major at the time, and I walked into what I didn't know was an anarchist space. So it was like the first time I experienced a zine and the first time I've experienced an anarchist space. And yeah, I was handed something that I like called a pamphlet for a really long time. And yeah, it mostly was talking about rights with police and a lot of things that were really contrary to what I was learning in high school. So I kept it in my pocket for a long time.
Awesome. Thank you all so much for sharing how you came into contact with zines, the culture, and how it's transformed into what all of you do now. So I'm going to go ahead and share the next question. Why have you chosen zines as an art practice, as activism, and or as a business? I'm going to let the question kind of simmer, and then we can go ahead and start with Matt.
Matt Paramo.
As I said, it started out as kind of just an interesting activism format, information being shared for free, if not for really cheap. And those pivotal years, like late high school, early college, when you're kind of figuring out what you actually believe and, figuring out who you are, there was just a lot of interesting content, as well as I was in the music scene and always making art. So it was a way to find out about bands, about other artists, what people are doing on the other side of the country, without the resources of the internet that we have now. So it was always just drew me in, and I've stuck with it. And as an artist, I've created my own art zines, mostly just sketchbook zines, series of those. I also dabbled a little bit in trying to do some writing and putting together a zine that was not only reviewing music but had like food recipes and different things of that nature, as well as art. I think it just always is focused around art for me. And in the beginning of the pandemic, when I got laid off from my couple bar gigs I had as unemployed, I was like, I got to do something with my time. So I started my business Rat Nest, and we've been curating an online shop of independent artists, comic book makers, and zine makers. And it just all stemmed from back in the day when I got hooked.
Sandria.
Particularly zines for me is that direct contact of not having being able to get to my reader without a filter of something else, like the publishing industry rules of what I thought they were before I knew anything about zine. That's been huge for me. Even when I'm creating, I just don't have certain things in mind anymore when I'm making books now, because my whole basis is self-publishing. So pretty much from after Zine Fest, from publishing the zines, I started self-publishing short story anthologies, which allowed for me to start teaching about self-publishing and writing books. That all stemmed from the zine community. And then like she was saying, and like Rebecca was saying in my biography, I started the self-publishing company now so that I can help other people publish zines and their sci-fi stuff. So that's kind of where it took me career-wise. And politically, I'm part of a collective, our collective called Snatch Power. And so zines and burlesque kind of go hand in hand as far as my artistic liberation, my sexual liberation, my just overall femme liberation, period. And just the idea of being able to express intellect without without having a kind of the typical supremacy standard. Like the supremacy is authenticity. If you can articulate who you are thoroughly, that makes the piece good. And so I only find that, I found that first in zines, and it helps me I bring all that to, I bring it to everything. I hope that answered the question.
Several of them smile and laugh.
Ria?
Sure. I don't know why that question always gives me so much anxiety.
No pressure.
Yeah. Oh, here I go. I'm in.
They refer to the dog in their lap.
And this is Ace, by the way. This is Ace. We've been companions for a week now, so. Well, first I want to give big, just big appreciation to Sandria and Jen, because they both have been really influential in my journey as a zine person, both as a zine maker and an organizer. Meeting Sandria and Uhuru, who co-founded Snatch Power, like literally changed my life and continues to change my life. The more we continue to collaborate and deepen our friendships and work together, and I just like am excited that we're gonna like just be really wrinkly making zines together like for a long time. And I'm sure Jen will like hop on a panel talk all together. Matt will be there. We'll just be like talking about Tumblr, pre-Tumblr. Yeah, so Snatch Power had a huge influence on me. Jen donated their zine collection to me a long time ago. And that, I remember exactly when it happened. It was like on the street, it was like a drop off. And Jen really wanted this like important library of theirs to live on, you know, and be passed on, just like have a new life. And that ended up really becoming the foundation of the LA Zine Fest zine library that is still archived and exists. And yeah, just so grateful for that. And I feel like
Ria looks upward.
yeah, I continue to create zines as a tool to disseminate what it is that I'm doing, that I find is when I find limitation in digital spaces, I tend to utilize zines to, yeah, have creative, effective communication with people. And it's a beautiful way to collaborate and organize. And I'm going to pause there.
Jen?
Jen faces us with a big smile.
Oh my God, I totally forgot about that zine drop off. Amazing. Thank you. What a cool memory. Yeah, so zines have been for me about community, especially as a disabled introvert, like mostly like homebound person. And so it's a way to connect with folks, and also like the idea of like Zine Fest, where there's like 1, maybe 2 days where you go out and like you get to be around like a bunch of people, like just doing their like thing and be like showing their art and their craft, and just being able to be a part of that is one of my favorite things about zines, about art in general, just one of my favorite things. And zines really were foundational in politicizing me, like incredibly. Also, they can be incredible resources. Like Rhea said, they're a great opportunity for collaboration. Just, I just feel so connected to zines as also a way to circumvent like the way that publishing is gatekept for many people, most people, I would say. And it's just a really cool way to take back power into our own hands and use our voices and our art and, you know, our like the core of like who we are, and put it out there and have it be like available to people and have access to other people's hearts and art and words. And, you know, it's amazing. It's radical. Like it truly is. It truly is.
Professor Adam Martinez.
Are zines the focal point of your art making and activism, or do you see it more as a secondary part of a larger practice? And I guess a lot of what we've been talking about so far is sort of your relationship to zines and that art style, like getting your feet into it and learning about it sort of as an observer. And now we're kind of getting into the part where you're already in that space, you've been there for a while. And so at this point in time, like, how do you view that art practice of zines? Is that your primary practice, or is it serving as an extension of this other, maybe larger thing that you're working on?
He smiles and gestures.
Floor is open.
Matt Paramo faces us.
I'll go ahead and jump in. So I guess I would consider myself an artist who does a lot of different things. Zine making has definitely been part of that for a long time. I also paint, make music, just keep a journal, you know, so in the sense, I wouldn't say that zine making is my primary focus when it comes to my art life, but it has been very therapeutic and very helpful when I'm feeling discouraged or when I'm not feeling like I'm unproductive in other ways when it comes to making art. Zine is almost something I could put together in a night if I want, you know what I mean? Like, cause I do pretty lowbrow like stuff, you know, it's not fine tuned. So I can go through sketchbooks and find drawings I like or illustrations that I like and kind of knock something out and do something physical too. You put it all together. I mean, from everything from printing the stuff out, like laying it out, figuring out, you know, a dummy model and what pages are going to be butted up against the other pages, doing it at home, cutting everything, stapling everything. And it's art therapy. It's making something with your hands, and your mind gets a little clarity for even just a few hours. And then you have something to show for it. And at that time you did all that work for yourself. So you want to just give it out. You want to keep it, you know, you want it for free, take it for free. You want to pay me $3, pay me $3. It doesn't matter. It's not hours and hours of painting where you feel like it's more valuable. I don't know what it is exactly, but yeah, I guess to answer the question more directly, zine making is part of my business and art life, but not necessarily the entire focus.
I can go next. zine making is not has not been my primary focus. My primary focus art-wise has been just writing literature, writing short stories, and where they end up, I've posted them on blogs or online magazines and magazines. So that so far has been my focus. But now that I'm teaching, and especially teaching kids, because I've been teaching adults for a while, and this is my first time teaching underage people, humans, and I want to bring, like, zine making is huge on my heart now, and especially because Rhea is back in town, so we got to do some zine. We got to do some zine events last year. That's getting me all zine happy. So now one of my main publishing goals for my publishing company is to create, and this is just a goal. We'll see what happens, but it's probably going to happen. The zine, which is just a big yearly book of all the zines I can collect in Southern California throughout the year, like from June to June type vibe. So I think that it's a ebb and flow because I'm always creating zines, even if I'm not putting them out. Like Wolverine has zines. Wolverine is my kid. Sorry for anybody that doesn't know. Wolverine's my son. His name is Wolverine. And he has zines. You know, there's the Wolverine zine. So zine making is not a primary focus of my art, but it is a huge part of, like Matt said, my spiritual and mental health. It is a part, like I do zines like I do, you know, yoga, you know, like it's a part of to work out certain ideas, like just juxtaposing, like you said, designing something minor that I want to become something bigger. I do that constantly. So yeah, I wouldn't call that a focus. I would almost call it like the anti-focus, like the thing that helps me be able to focus on everything else, you know. Yeah.
Zines for me have been more connected to my organizing work that I do than my creative identity. I am a musician and a writer, and I do use zines as a really powerful personal outlet. However, yeah, the majority of my relationship to zines has been organizing zine fests, zine events, opportunities for people to meet one another, because that is a huge, huge passion of mine, particularly in a city that is so spread out, and continuing to find more accessible ways to connect people through zines. I also, in my work with Uhuru, who I mentioned as part of Snatch Power, I can hear Sandria saying Snatch in the background. Uhuru is also a founding member of a band called Fuck You Pay Us, and is currently living in New Orleans and has just purchased a home that is going to be a artist residency space for other cutie, BIPOC, trans, disabled, sex workers, all kinds of folks can take refuge in this space. And the journey of buying that home was something that Uhuru and I worked closely together on for years to learn about. And through our process of organizing and learning about that experience, I documented pretty much everything. I transcribed everything during our meetings, and we started creating zines together about housing discrimination, about the racist practices of mortgage lending and credit scores. And I have been editing those into zines that I hope to oh, here we go.
Rhea's dog starts to become restless in their lap. Rhea laughs.
I'm gonna come back to that. He's gonna have a moment.
Jen, you want to hop in?
Yeah. when I first started making zines, I think my focus was giving myself a voice, which I think was, important. But I think my focus with zines now, especially within my art and activism practice, is to uplift voices of queer femmes. And one of the ways I do that is with a zine called Hairy Femme Mother, and it's submission based. And it talks about like the nuances of body hair for queer femmes of any gender, with a like, I do try to prioritize Black, Indigenous, POC femmes, because I think those experiences are rarely talked about when we're talking about body hair, queer femme or not. And so that's something that's very important to me, that I can use whatever platform I have to, share that art, share that discourse, share that like knowledge, that power. And so through doing that zine, it's really helped me learn how to be of service, how to use what I have access to, and the gifts that I have to help, like not even just help other people, but like share that with other people, like connect people, let people know, like, hey, this person's cool, like, check out what they're doing, or they have something important to say, like, listen, and so it's been very collaborative for me, and that's really, I want to say, like the core of what I do now. It's really been, it was the starting point for me to refocus, like go inward, do that work, and then be like, okay, I'm ready. Like, let me go outward. Like, how can I be of service to my community, the greater community? Like, so yeah, so it's very important to what I do now.
She nods.
Thank you all. I love, like Adam mentioned earlier, I love how this conversation is just organically progressing as our questions are coming up. And so there's a lot of themes that all of you have shared, such as like the theme of liberation, the theme of activism, and how community really forms part of zine culture. And so the next question is, what is the role of community in zine making practices? And how do you use zines, and how do you use zine making to build community?
To me, zine making is about building communities and then sharing your communities, right? So it's like you get your friends together and you do something, and then you want to share that with other people, and then they have their own community of friends, and then you make friends with that group, and then it's a bigger community, right? And you build and build and build. And there's definitely direct avenues that you can take when you're doing zine making, whether it's focusing on this or that in your zine making. But ultimately, the idea of it brings everyone together, in my experience. Oh, you do this, you do an art zine? Oh, I do a writing zine. Oh, I do a poetry zine. Like, oh, we do short stories, we do pictures and photos. And you vibe off each other, and then you meet new people, and then your connections grow. And through that, it helps bring everyone together. You don't focus on what's different about what you do, but more that you guys are doing similar things. And maybe that comes from like music and bands and playing with people that you don't know and different styles and whatever. If someone comes to your town and is a touring band, maybe they sleep on your floor, and maybe when you go up to their city, you sleep on their floor, and you build a community through just connecting with each other on that like basic level. And zines really provide that for a lot of people, I think.
Sandria raises her hand.
Sandria.
All right. Looks like we have a pattern going.
They all laugh.
Yes. For me, I think that zines are the community to a degree. It's almost like you're part of the community before you know, but then like when you have a zine experience, a brush with zines or a brush with a zinester, and then the zine in you activates, kind of vibe. So like it's like everybody has this little bit of, a little zine spark in them. It's just about, are you about to be initiated or what? So I feel like it's like or even a skull and crossbones type vibe, like secret society. And then it just something clicks. Like the day that Arthola took me to the Zine Fest, it was like nobody had to tell me. Once I was in the building, all I had to do was walk in and see it. And then it was like I knew exactly what I was gonna do after that. Like I know I have a book for that. I know how I'm gonna table it. I know how, and then I linked up with Snatch Power, and Snatch Power got they're like, oh wait, we can put this stuff in print. Like we can, everything that we're doing politically, we can make this a print thing. And so that became but those things already existed, so I think that zines, either the zine is the community or the community is already the zine. It's just about rubbing together and catching that activation at the right time. And I think a lot of times the zine fests are a way to initiate those organic pop-offs, because the whole festival, your mind is blown, like about how I learned about so many different types of people through their zines, and through going to Zine Fest, like that I would not have normally connected with, that I normally might have been looking at them like, I don't know, looking like a colonizer. But I'm like, no, this motherfucker's down, because I got to read their words at the Zine Fest. The fact that they're even in the Zine Fest building shows that they're down in the first place, because it ain't easy not to be down in those spaces, which we love. Like we wanted that to be the vibe. Like, don't be in here taking up space that's supposed to be independent space, or supposed to be people of color space, or supposed to be unless you're with the shits, So I think that thing already exists, and then the zines existing kind of activates it. But yes, I'm gonna stop. I feel like I'm rambling now.
No, actually what you share right now got me thinking that maybe the actual physical zine is the tangible community, and you're able to hand it out and pass it around.
The Zinesters nod in agreement. Sandria claps.
Thank you, Sandria. Jen, would you like to go next?
Yeah, the way that the zines are community for me is, it's an opportunity to connect with all kinds of different people. It's an accessible way to connect typically with all kinds of different people. It's like, it can be like teaching moments, right? Like zines can be like resources in terms of recipe sharing, herbalism, DIY stuff, political type of zines. And so it really is putting the power of communication and knowledge and art back into the community in really incredible ways, I think. It gives people that don't normally have a voice. It gives, it's just this way to connect, to share, and to learn and listen and witness and to commune. So
yeah, I echo so much of what you all are saying, and I think what I want to add is that community is complicated, and a big part of what I have experienced and learned and grown from in various communities where zines are a focus is I've experienced a lot of personal painful learning moments. Like I have made zines that are a reflection of the space the knowledge I had at the time, that were a reflection of the identity I held at the time. but I look back on those zines and I'm like very cringy. I'm like, wow, this is like very white feminist, like, and I was just passing it out, like, don't worry, it's free. Like, oh my God, I want, and I can't get that back, like, that's one of the really interesting, powerful things about zines is that, you don't have an editor that's sitting there like, okay, this is problematic. Like that, you like a lot of times you have to be that editor that's checking yourself and hopefully the people around you who you share it with. And yeah, I've had to really learn like what is the responsibility I have of someone making zines if I want to share that with people. Like there's a responsibility there. And I've gotten better at it. And I'm also, yeah, I've made some zines that I wish I could make disappear. But, it's just a reflection of me being a complete person willing to share my journey. And that is all the celebratory things and all the things about me that just make me a complicated ass regular person.
The Zinesters all laugh heartily. Sandria snaps and claps.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for all of those insights. I feel like even in this panel discussion we're having now, like we're building community because we all came together from our network, right? And like, I know some of you and some of you I don't, but now I do. And now I'm probably going to go follow you on IG after this. And hopefully you all follow each other. And I'm so elated for our Chafee community to see you all in the physical space next week when the Zine Fest returns. And just knowing that, thinking about the first question of how you all got into zines, like your zine could very well be that for a community member at Chafee, and that's incredible. So like we're keeping the legacy going. And I was just like hearing what you were all saying, like what Jen was talking about. It gave me this idea that like zine fests are kind of like farmers markets for ideas, and I just think that's so that feels very communal to me. And you all talked a lot about like the idea of the tangible, like Sandra said, the idea of the tangible zine, and we're talking about a physical space and going to a zine fest. And then when we think about that for this next question, this technological moment that we've been in now for, the better part of almost 2 decades now with social media, where does zine culture fit with social media? Like how and why do you feel like zines are still relevant in the age of social media?
Sandria enthusiastically raises her hand.
I can take this, please, ASAP. I love paper. I love paper. It does not matter how fast the phone moves. It doesn't matter how long the battery lasts. I fucking hate screens so bad. Like, so to me, aesthetically, like that human thing that I have, I feel like I'm not alone in that thing. And zines may be the last fucking standing thing we have. That's still paper, because everything, like the Boston Globe shut down, man. The Globe, like, like print is dead, you know what I'm saying? But, zines are gonna zombie that shit, because zines ain't never gonna let print die, because that's the level. It's this hand to hand. It's part of the code, and I feel like that is like I like to call it like guerrilla publication, but it's like the street version of things. And the street version don't go out of style. It always sells. You can have as many dispensaries as you want. I bet you still got a plug. So yeah.
I wanna say something around that too. I love what you said, Sandria. Like it is like it's a physical connection, right? Like it's a way to connect. My friend Laurent Corrales is really expanding my idea around that in terms of accessibility. One of the things that he does is has like the paper format of zines, but then also records them and does like a audio zine, and also scans them and has like the digital zine as a way to, you know, circulate that information in with the tools that we have now, but also like still doing the paper zine, right? Because that's becoming a lost art. And when we, you know, when we don't have the internet anymore, we're going to have that paper. So that's exactly what you're talking about. And I feel that, like, yes, absolutely.
Just gonna piggyback off you guys. Like, it's a romanticized idea of when the internet is gone and we're all reading by candlelight, but that we would still have something physical to hold and to read, and that information that you associate with a certain time or memory in your own life, or an idea that sparked something in you years and years before, is still there without electricity or batteries or anything needed, and that you can hold that in your hand. And it might just be, you know, a crazy idea, but you never know what's going to happen. We live in a crazy world, right? So if everything was to shut down, at least we could bunker up and read all our books and zines and remember what we felt like when we got them, you know.
I think one thing I will add to that is just thinking about surveillance, and you know, you can certainly make a paper zine and pass it around, and there's surveillance culture is present in IRL spaces, of course, but there's just something about just like the relationship to digital identities and the encouragement of us to be surveilling one another all the time, that I have found solace in a zine, even if it's just making like a poetry zine that I give to 5 people. There's just, something special about that.
They nod.
Now that you've all shared your wealth of knowledge that you have gathered throughout the years, I'm going to ask the final official question, and then we're going to go ahead and open up to the Q&A with the audience, as well. If the panelists want to also ask each other a question, go for it. But what advice do you have to offer for people getting started in zines?
I would say just do as much as you can. There's no wrong way to do it. If you like what you're doing, if you're having fun making it, whatever you want to do it. I know, to call back a little bit of what Rhea said about looking back and like see it, maybe it's a little cringy and stuff that you wouldn't 100% right now or do now. It's in the moment, and we're all growing all the time, right? We can only strive to be better than we were in the past, right? So it's like, you know, with every new project you do and every new thing you approach, you're going to get better at it, but you're not going to get anywhere if you don't try or if you're scared to try. So just make as much as you can, throw it out there. I mean, every artist can tell you, we look back on our songs and drawings and paintings and we're like, man, it sucks, but you only get better by making shitty paintings. And, you know, that's as much as I can add, but just encourage yourself. I mean, encourage your friends, build a community, get people together. Be the one to be the catalyst that you want to see.
If it's your first time making zines, my advice would be, just know that your imagination is the limit. Even if you've seen all the zines, you haven't made yours yet. So you haven't seen all the zines. And I think that's something to consider. Whatever you want to bring to a zine is what will now be a part of the zine community. That's how much effect you have and how much you matter within that space. You're not just anybody in that space. You're one of many, and you're one. So I think I think you should be creating with that in the front of your mind, that the community that you're creating for cares and wants to hear what you have to say. So you don't have to convince us to listen to you. So that might help when you're making art. We already want you. Come on. And so yeah, that's my advice.
Thank you, Sandria. Rhea?
Sure. I would say the majority of my friends are other neurodivergent people. And I say that because everyone I know has these brilliant obsessions with like info dumping. Like my friends will have like a week of like, oh, I'm obsessed with this like particular like historical event, and I've learned so much about it, and I feel so guilty because it's not productive and it's not a reflection of capitalism. And or I learned so much about this particular video game history and where the soundtrack comes from, and now I just feel really bad about myself because this, like, why did I just spend so much time doing that? Like, anytime I hear my friends guilt tripping themselves about those types of interests, I'm like, zine, make it a zine. Like, put it into a zine. Maybe you won't even finish it. Like, maybe you'll lose interest or you'll burn out or you'll like move on to something else, but like, that's okay. It's like worthy, like those it's a worthy experience to have.
Yeah, I guess my sort of advice would be zines can literally be about any topic. There probably might be a zine about a topic you want to do already, but it's not your perspective. So like, do it. Like, there's like so many different ways to also create a zine. You could, you know, go the cut and paste route. You could do digital layouts if you have like tools like that. If you're like Matt said, you know, you have your sketchbooks and you're gonna pull stuff out of there. If you're pulling stuff out of your journals, there's so many different ways to do it. Like there could be ways that we haven't even thought of and you did. And like, that's why this is so important. That's why this is like, it's sacred. Like this is our way to connect on our own terms and to learn from each other and to, you know, like just connect. And that's what it's all about. So that's my advice.
One more thing I wanted to add, because I had the zine making advice, but I wanted to add for just going to experience the Zine Fest in itself, to like experience different parts of the Zine Fest, making zines, and like Rhea said, Rhea's experience is heavy on the organizing side, because I've gotten to do, I feel like almost every job at the fest, and it's let me know, you know, what things are my strong points. Even as much as I love the LA Zine Fest, I'm not a strong organizer. That's not my shit. You know, like I love doing the application reviews, you know, on that level of organizing it. But like logistics about where it's going to be and all that stuff, that's not my shit. I don't get excited about that part of Zine Fest. So I would focus on the part that gets you all tingly.
Awesome. Thank you for that, Sandria. And thank you all. And Jen, I loved how you described it as sacred work. Because it really is, you know, like you can put out a zine on a perspective that may resonate with others and may inspire others, or, you know, that's how you connect and you create community. And going off of what Sandria said, definitely go and participate and see a zine fest. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read one of the questions. Let me quickly go up to it. Okay, so there's a question for Sandria from Jen. Sandria, can you talk about your Afrofuturistic short story and art series?
Okay, so Afrofuturism. Yes. My first Afrofuturistic story and my first sci-fi story was Fighting Heels, which was a fan fiction story based on my Snatch Power Collective members. And that became what is now my writing style, which will probably be my writing style forever, which is a mixture of sci-fi and erotica. And I think that Jen is talking about the Carvarians, which the Carvarians is a series. It has two collections of short stories, and the final one, Carvarians 3, that comes out this summer, is a novel. And it is it's a sci-fi and erotic collection loosely based on the teachings of George Washington Carver. So there's studies about George Washington Carver. It's not just peanuts with this guy. He has like over 600 botanical inventions, and he created this rare color of purple. And so I started this series based on these people that follow the teachings of Carver. That's why they're called the Carvarians. They talk to plants, they procreate with plants. It's a whole thing. It's a whole Carveriverse. But yes, the Afrofuturism and that's my main art thing, is bringing Blackness to everything. Even though I love, standard American English, that's my shit. I'm heavy on colloquialisms and making sure that the boom bap is included in the dialogue of everything that I write, and emphasizing the intellect that's found in our communities over institutional intellect, especially where those things conflict, and one of them fed you and the other one is just telling you that it's right. So yeah, that's kind of like what my fiction ends up being based around. I don't think I can go into how I do that right now, but yeah, I always think, like, for me, future, we don't in my culture, we don't think linearly anyway. It's a circle. So the future is the past and the past is the present. Like any unfinished business gets done the next time around type vibe. So it is the future, like Jen said, but it's also a imagination of George Washington Carver. So it's kind of like a past thing too. So yeah, man, that I love that shit. We can talk about that all day.
Nice. Thank you so much, Sandria. And we do have another question. I'm just going in the order. Rebecca asked, do any of you have thoughts regarding analog versus digital for you and your own zine practice? And any one of you can just chime in.
I'm gonna pop in real quick just because I struggle with this one in my own art making constantly, because everything is so digitalized, and it kind of has to be to a certain extent. When you're working with people from around the country, it's a lot harder to send original artwork. Sometimes people don't want to. They'd rather send you a scan or do something like that. So when you're collabing with people or you're doing an anthology, a lot of it's based digitally. In my own personal work, I hate digital. Like I would rather just put pen to paper, put a paintbrush on a canvas, whatever it is. It's a physical act to me that is so much more rewarding than doing something in Photoshop or Illustrator. Even though I utilize those tools and I have to, for me, I would always go physical over digital if I had the chance to do so. But it's almost a necessity that you can't just do something one way.
I've been thinking about this for next week at the fest because the zines that Uhuru and I make together, that I think Ace was barking during me talking about them, but there are two zines that we've made together so far. And I've been trying to decide whether like I can go to Kinko's, get the like print that looks and I don't say Kinko's because that's my preferred place to make a copy, but it's like sometimes it's just where you have to go and you can't scam them anymore, which is kind of is a pain. It's such a pain. But yeah, just making that decision of whether you can upfront the cost of like making a particular number of copies of the zines that you make. And the zines that we made together are like in color, and I really like that they're in color, but if I bring them to the fest, I'm gonna have to, you know, each zine would maybe cost me like $10 to print. And is that worth it? Because then what would I have to charge someone when really all I want is them to just get this information? So yeah, I might try out, for example, making some black and white copies and having a little QR code for folks to scan it and get a digital version. So yeah, I've been going back and forth about that, because you have to upfront the costs when you're gonna table at a fest. So yeah.
I can go next. And yes, Rhea, facts. I already know about the snatch zines, and yes, they be $20 zines. Like we have to charge $20 to cover the printing costs, so I already know. But yeah, for me, the whole beginning of my writing career, I would not provide digital or audio versions of my books. So my first 3 collections, everything before Carvarians 2, which is the 4th book that I wrote and the last thing that came out, nothing had audio books and stuff like that until after that one was coming out. Because I was just so violently opposed to it. Like, I'm like, well, if I wanted you to, you know, if I wanted it to be audible, I would have made music. Or if I wanted you to, you know, type vibe. And I think that now I'm not so precious with that thing. I'm more like, the paper exists, you know. Me releasing Carvarians 2 on Kindle or making the audiobook version doesn't change that. And it also gives me an opportunity to present it, to present the material in a different way. Like on the audiobook, I get to do voices and I get to, you know, do ad libs and stuff like that I don't get to bring to the book. So I just started kind of having reverence for presenting the printed work in another way that I didn't have respect for before. But yeah, I'm definitely pro paper, especially because everything wants to not be paper. Books too, that's ridiculous. It's fucking ridiculous. You know, like in my mind, like I'm like, at the very least, let books stay paper. Let everything else go digital, you know. But yeah, that's my thing.
All right. I wanted to pop in with, when we opened the Q&A for everybody viewing, we got a couple, not questions, but comments that I just wanted to read to our panelists. So Ashlyn, they said, no questions, but just want to thank all of the speakers for your insight. And Rosario said, loved hearing from everybody. But we do have a couple more questions. I'll let Sandra read mine, but I have another one from Rebecca, and it's for Sandra. You had mentioned Wolverine and zines, and is that a practice that you two do together?
Wolverine is an art baby. Wolverine was in the Wilmette Zine Fest. Wolverine was in the Stroller Zine Fest. And yeah, when I started, as soon as I got pregnant, I actually started working on this project, which I think that next week is going to be the first time I get to present it anywhere, called Oh Shit, I'm Mom, which is like a collection of just kind of my maternal experience when I was becoming a mom. And I'm like, who's going to even be right? Like, I'm not going to, people, it was so funny because people are like, you're not going to be able to keep up with these notes. And it's just like, no, I totally kept up. Like, I got 7 years worth of fucking shit to share. And with Wolverine's zines, it's dope because he didn't pick up on reading and writing as fast as I thought he would, or as fast as I did as a kid. He's more into drawing and puzzles. So his zines are dope because they're picture stories. And then he's adding words. So I like that a lot. And then the thing that I call the Wolverine zine is the Oh Shit, I'm Mom zine, because that's the Wolverine zine kind of dedication vibe. I think that I think the first Snatch Power zine actually in 2016 has a couple of excerpts from Oh Shit I'm Mom, actually. But this is gonna be the first time I get to present it as a completed collection. So yeah, Wolverine learns everything from me. Wolverine is homeschooled. So Wolverine goes to the hip hop shows. Wolverine's out here.
So I'm gonna ask the question Adam had for any or all of the panelists. Can you talk about your zine name / a favorite title of a zine you've made? What's the story behind it?
I do an ongoing series of sketchbook zines called Sick in Bed. And that was just it started just like that. I was sick. I got like a weird flu years ago and laid out like for the first time in my adult life. This is, pre-COVID, where you're like, what the hell is happening? I haven't been sick since I was a kid. And all I did was just, all I could do was sit around, draw. And the first little zine I put together in that series came from that week of being sick in bed. So I'm got 8 out right now, and I'm planning on putting a 9th one together for Zine Fest next week. So that's an ongoing series, probably the most consistent one. And then stuff I've done in the past is like called Milk and Cookies, just because I thought it was a fun name. And now I have the Rat Nest zine. We did the first issue of that one with this business I'm running now. But I think Sick in Bed is probably my favorite. That's my little baby, is my sketchbook zine.
Oh yeah, real quick. Unthinkable Act. Unthinkable Act. That's my favorite zine name, just because it was my first sci-fi. And so a lot of the stuff I wrote about was kind of like, you can't do that on television. So that's my favorite one.
Harry Femmother. It's basically a basic play on Fairy Godmother, but the reason why it's important to me is because there is a certain brilliance and gift of knowledge from queer femmes that not everybody has access to. And it's kind of like queer femmes can I don't even know how to explain like the magic and the power behind it. Almost like you don't necessarily know how to explain like the magic behind a fairy godmother, right? But it's real. And so yeah, so that's why that's where that name came from.
Rebecca has another question. And this is, if you could recommend a zine maker or a specific zine that you would recommend for us all to check out, that you're excited about.
Lawrence Lindell, that is an artist that I met through LA Zine Fest. And Lawrence does a lot of, it's comic book style zines, and there are a lot of mental health based stuff, a lot of like masculine mental health stuff, a lot of Black people mental health stuff. And so I would highly recommend, I don't know if Lawrence is still making new zines, but if you can get your hands on Lawrence Lindell, Indell, I believe, zines, definitely, like there's a lot of good, dope mental health things in those zines that can kind of start conversations in communities where mental health may not be a priority or may be difficult to talk about.
I'll go real quick. Like I said in the beginning, Slingshot is still around out of Berkeley. They do really cool activism stuff. A lot of just reader submitted content. And like I said, it's $4 for a year. You get one every 3 months. And then I work with a lot of like comic artists and like art zines. If you're into comic art and art zines, check out Charles Globitz, Jonathan McBurney, Christopher Sporandio, Brian McCrae. All those guys make really, really cool, fun bootleg zines, and some political stuff, some sci-fi, some psychedelic, but really, really great artists, really great artwork.
I'm going to recommend the zine that was mentioned in my bio, which is Learning Good Consent, and it's edited by Cindy Crabb. At this point, it's kind of all been compiled into a book form. And if you do check it, it's in a lot of libraries, and AK Press sells it. And it is, the focus of it is preventing sexual violence and consent within sexual relationships, but I have found that it has been extremely beneficial for just the expansive understanding of consent in all relationships. And it's one that I've given to a lot of people and that I constantly buy copies of again, just to hand them out. So I would recommend that.
I would recommend zines that folks from the Los Angeles Spoonie Collective put out. And I think some of them are going to be at the Zine Fest, including Laurent Corrales' zines. I would also say Tasha Fierce's zine is a cool one to pick up. Tasha does some transition work, whether it's death, whether it's just transitions in life. And you can find them at Liberated Transitions. Is there business project organization work? Yeah. And yeah, thanks, Rebecca. Tasha's zine is called How to Breathe Fire. It's amazing. And I would also recommend Lilac Violet Maldonado zines. Lilac does a lot of work around disability activism, the Latina culture, some pretty cool work, some pretty cool art. Yeah, those are who I would recommend.
Text, follow on Instagram, Wignall at Wignall Museum. Adam at adam.edil. Matt at Ratness Sticker CO. Ria at avocado_spaceship. Sandria at Sandria Writes. Jen at Grime and Glamour.
I just want to say thank you all so much. I cannot wait to see your work in real life next week and actually get to feel the paper, right? We're talking about paper a lot. So excited to see your faces and your paper.
Text, we ask that you complete a quick survey that will help us as we evaluate our online programming and plan future programs. https://tinyurl.com/wignall-survey.
And we do ask that before you head out, if you can complete a brief survey, and Rebecca promises that it's short.
I swear. It helps us a lot to evaluate what we're doing and helps us in the future. So if you have a moment, we appreciate you.
Rebecca faces us.
But thank you all so much. I hope to see many of you, a lot of you next week. And if not next week, then we'll catch you next time. We're zine happenings, it's something we're committed to at the college, the whole group of us, the library, the museum, equity. And so, look for more in the future. We'd love to see you there. Thanks all. Have a great night.
Logo, Chaffey College. Text, Wignall Museum of Contemporary Art. Home edition. Animation, a solid black square border surrounds the logo and text. A large triangle with a solid black border appears above the square. On its right side there's a small rectangle extending upward. It gives the appearance of the logo and text being inside a house with a chimney.